Mangwanani Mwalelepo Bukenjani Vanabe Africa. Welcome to this show which keeps you abreast with the latest happenings across the continent and beyond every weekday morning. My name is Aina Raiza Koyo alongside Diana Master. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a wholesome Wednesday.
It's a wholesome Wednesday right in the middle of the week,
Yep.
you know, just 2 more days until the weekend.
Until the weekend.
Now let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. 2 million Malagasy in path of Cyclone Freddy. Zimbabwe wants to create Africa's Dubai at Victoria Falls, and regions in US, China most at risk for climate change. We're also going to be speaking to Ari Hohad in South Africa to give us the latest news. Your top stories coming up right after this.
This morning, we start with news from Madagascar. 2 million Malagasy in path of Cyclone Freddy. The authorities in Madagascar on Monday say that at least 2 million people will be affected once Cyclone Freddy makes landfall in the eastern part of the country. Experts from the National Bureau of Risk and Catastrophes have predicted that the cyclone will hit 9 regions in the country. Emergency teams are preparing to deal with the heavy rains, floods, and even landslides in areas that will be affected. The cyclone has been churning in the Indian Ocean for weeks, and according to experts, its impact will be felt between the districts of Vatamandri in the southeast and Manakara in the east coast. Those living in the areas have been advised to strengthen their doors and roofs, cut down dangerous trees, and stay indoors at the time of the cyclone.
Now getting into our next story, Zimbabwe wants to create Africa's Dubai at Victoria Falls. Zimbabwe plans to set up an offshore financial center in the resort city of Victoria Falls that the government wishes to vie with the likes of Dubai and the Isle of Man to attract foreign investment. The trigger is the success of the VFEX. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube said in an interview a reference to the US dollar-denominated Victoria Falls Stock Exchange that's experiencing a listings boom. We want to compete with any offshore financial center in the world. The project will offer investors an environment comparable to the Isle of Man, Mauritius and Dubai, he said. Mark Holtzman, a US veteran banker with 35 years experience in emerging markets, has been appointed board chairman of the center. Holtzman is also chairman of CBZ Holdings, Zimbabwe's biggest lender. The financial center will be a hard currency zone based on US dollars and offer tax incentives. Land has been set aside by the state to attract global banks to establish offices in the country, according to Ncube. The VFEX, which officially launched in October 2020, will be housed under the financial center.
Now, top Anglican clerics no longer recognize Welby. 12 Anglican church leaders have announced that they no longer consider Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby to be the leader of the Global Communion after his decision to allow blessing for gay partnerships. The leaders, who say they represent 75% of the Anglican worldwide, accuse the Church of England of having taken the path of false teaching and going against historical biblical faith. They include the primates of South Sudan, Uganda, Congo, and Alexandria in Egypt. Blessings for same-sex civil partnerships were approved by the Church of England's Legislative Assembly, the General Synod earlier said this month. The Archbishop of the Canterbury has said he appreciates the bishop's stance, but no structural changes to the Anglican Communion could be made without his consent.
Now an update on the Mayon volcano. Rescuers search for survivors of Philippine plane crash. Philippine rescuers are scouring the slopes of an active volcano for survivors after a small plane crashed near the crater. The search on the Mayon volcano entered its third day on Tuesday with helicopters, mountain climbers and sniffer dogs deployed to the wreckage. 2 Filipino crew and 2 Australian consultants of a geothermal firm are among the missing. Bad weather has slowed the search since the plane was found Sunday. Local authorities have flagged the risks around Mayon, which last erupted in 2018. The 4-kilometer radius around it has been declared a permanent danger zone for landslides and rock slides. Heavy rains have in the past washed down volcanic debris, triggering mudslides and flash floods. The most recent incident happened in 2020 when Super Typhoon Goni, known locally as Rolly, lashed the Philippines Pacific coast. Cedric Diap, who is leading the search, told local radio DZGB that the provincial governor was hoping to find survivors by Tuesday. The Cessna plane had crashed on the slopes of a Philippine volcano. The Cessna 340 aircraft went missing shortly after departing from Manila from a local airport several kilometers from Mayon on Saturday.
Regions in the U.S. and China are most at risk for climate damage. This is according to a report. Major industrial and economic centers in China and the United States are among the most vulnerable regions in the world to the increasingly destructive power of climate change-driven weather extremes, according to a comprehensive analysis on Monday. The new findings underscore the urgent need for governments to focus on decarbonization and adaptation measures such as flood-proofing and show the economic fallout from climate change could be grave and widespread. 9 of the top most at-risk regions are in China, with the 2 of the country's largest subnational economies, Jiangsu and Shandong, leading the global ranking by the Cross-Dependency Initiative. After China, the U.S. has the most high-risk states. Florida, number 10 in the global rankings, is the U.S. state most in jeopardy, followed by California and Texas. China, India, and the United States make up over half of the states and provinces in the top 100.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, shrinking civic space. Mnangagwa to sign law effectively banning NGOs in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa says he will, without delay, sign into law the private voluntary organization bill that will restrict civic space. The law will result in the closure of almost 100 non-governmental organizations, most of which are engaged in humanitarian, peace, and democratic accountability work. Already 291 NGOs were deregistered in January this year. Some failed to present their audited statements to the Public Service and Social Welfare Ministry. In his weekly column in the state-run Sunday Mail, Mnangagwa said the PVO bill would protect and defend our sovereignty from foreign interests which seek to take advantage of the genuine need in our society to infiltrate and destabilize us. This will be the second time that NGOs have effectively been banned before elections in Zimbabwe. On 4 June 2008, a few weeks before the presidential runoff, having lost the first round of polls to Morgan Tsvangirai, then President Robert Mugabe banned all NGO operations. However, he later excluded organizations involved with HIV/AIDS, children, the disabled, and the care of the elderly. The ban was lifted on 29 August 2009 after Mugabe was re-elected unopposed to the presidency. The embargo interfered with the donor community's plans to provide roughly 7 million Zimbabweans with essential food aid. For years, Mugabe would continue threatening NGOs with bans, accusing them of supporting the opposition movement for democratic change.
News from South Africa with Ari Houhada follows after the break.
My.NA Property Show provides viewers with the best in-class content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest property-related products and services. If you would like to feature your brand or your campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Properties, more than just a roof over your head.
Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana faces a difficult task today when he presents his second South African budget. Here to give us more on this, Ari Hogad. Good morning, Ari. Please take it away.
Yes, very good morning, Diana. Yes, it's an important afternoon for South Africa, 2 p.m. It's the budget. It's always challenging. I know that in a normal budget, you've got spending and revenue collection. So that is the same thing that happens in South African budget. So all the South Africans want to see how the money is going to be spent and what the revenue collection looks like. What's the facts at the moment on the table? South African fiscal, there's a fiscal decline. South African Revenue Services expect 2% less income, so that's not good news. There's high unemployment in South Africa. Eskom, obviously well documented. There's 400 billion of debt that's going to be discussed there as well in 5 minutes, he said. And also there's high public debt. So what might happen is that the government take over Eskom's debt. So that's going to be a discussion. It talk about 200 billion South African rand that they're going to take over. The total is 400 billion, quite a high number. There might be tax rebates for solar panels. That's also related to Eskom. And the remuneration for government employees is quite high in South Africa, 15% of GDP. That's some of the highest in the world. We look if that will be addressed. The reality is that total revenue for South Africa in the 2022 budget was 1.59 trillion South African rand, but the total expenditure was more than 2 trillion. So when we budget, my own budget, and we're all that's listening, we want to spend less that you get in. So that is the idea. South Africa not doing that at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. The whole overall debt burden of South Africa is 5 trillion South African rand. Bit gloomy at the moment to talk about all of this. Hopefully 2 p.m. this afternoon, the Minister of Finance will tell us some good news. But it's a 50-50 thought at the moment if it's going to be good news or bad news.
All right, and now we understand that the Eskom CEO believes that South Africa will not go beyond stage 8 of load shedding. Could this be a possibility, Ari?
Yes, it is a possibility, and that's concerning for South Africa. Definitely, if there's a possibility of stage, they're talking about not going to stage 8, it's definitely a possibility. So at the moment, we're talking about 6 or 10 hours, no electricity on stage 6. Stage 8 will be devastating for South Africa. The reality is that at the moment, as I speak, there's 8 generation units that broke down yesterday and the day before. So South Africa really under big pressure. They're trying to catch up with some maintenance of some of the units, but at the moment, it's really just a catching up. So we'll see what the budget say this afternoon, if they get some relief of money to get more diesel to help there as well. But at the moment, as I speak, we all plan our days around that. 8 a.m. this morning, where I am at the moment, lights are off. So sometimes it's off between 6 and 8 a.m., then you can't make coffee. So we live by that, but hopefully it won't go to stage 8.
And it is actually quite concerning because businesses are losing millions of rand by the day. Now moving over, Stellenbosch University has denied claims that it plans to collaborate with the Russian government. What is the story there?
Yes, I think it was headlined also because of the warship that's in South Africa and that training that's taking place at the moment between South African Navy and the Russian Navy and China on the east coast of South Africa till the 27th of this month. But what happened was there was a meeting there too. That's the councillor of the University of Stellenbosch there with the representative from Russia in Cape Town. So they had a meeting, and so Russia came out they kind of exploit the events and said that there's now future cooperation between Russia and the university. The university said, no, hold back a little bit. It's just us. We do it with every country. We've got government and academic institutions that we talk to, but it is very sensitive in South Africa. So at the moment, University of Stellenbosch say there's no official link to Russia now. They're not working together. The Russians say, no, we like to work with you, and we partners. So everybody's quite tense with the Russian stance at the moment. Governments say they've strengthened a flourishing relationship. So that's what they say.
All right, Ari, could you please briefly tell us about the women's cricket?
Yes, some good news. Some good news. I was there last night. South Africa beat Bangladesh. They beat them by 10 wickets. South Africa, the women's team, through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. T20, great event, great achievement for South Africa. There's hope. They play on Friday against England in the semi-final. The other final on Thursday will be Australia against India. We hope for some good news. South Africa needs some good news.
You definitely do need some good news. Hopefully you have electricity to watch the game if you're not going to be there live. But thank you so much, Ari, for bringing us the latest news on the ground.
Yes, thank you. And they have addressed that. The game is 3 p.m. The final is also 3 p.m. They've had enough. They play when the sun is shining now.
That's a smart move. All right, now we're going to take a look at the weather predictions before we return with our economic news.
Here are your economic news for this morning. DRC and Zambia vowed to resolve custom delays for trucks hauling copper and cobalt. The presidents of Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia have vowed to resolve custom delays for truck transporting copper from two of the top producers in Africa. The growing demand for electric vehicles has fueled a race for copper and cobalt used in their batteries, but truckloads of the key metals have been stuck at the border. Angry truck drivers call for customs to speed up clearance at the borders after a meeting this month among officials from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. Some of the drivers from the southern and eastern Africa have parked in kilometers-long line at the borders for weeks. They are waiting to deliver goods into the DRC or take valuable metals out. Driver Edwin Kalaba is hauling copper to South Africa for export, but has been struck at the border for more than a week, sleeping in his truck.
Now moving over to Tanzania, key factors behind sharp rise in cement use in Tanzania. Cement production and consumption is rising steadily in Tanzania thanks to the ongoing mega projects, growing urbanization and a steady export market. Latest National Bureau of Statistics data shows that cement production, consumption and exports rose by 14.9%, 9.8% and 43.2% respectively last year. Apart from roads and bridges, including the 3.2-kilometer Kigongo-Busisi bridge linking Mwanza and Geita regions, as well as the ongoing construction of bus rapid transit infrastructure along Kilwa Road in Dar es Salaam. The government is also undertaking the multi-billion-dollar Standard Gauge Railway and the Julius Nyerere hydropower projects. We're now going to take a quick ad break and come back with the sports news with Ari Hohad.
Chill Sessions is an entertainment show that brings you the latest hit, fashion, and entertainment news. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact chill@synergy.com.na. Chill Sessions, bringing art and entertainment to the people.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and the ATP men's tour. Starting off with the ATP men's tour side, it is the Qatar Open that's taking place at the moment, round of 32 games that's taking place. It's Andy Murray of Great Britain. He is a former major winner. He beat Lorenzo Sonego of Italy. That was in the round of 32, the score 4-6, 6-1 and 7-6. He's through to the round of 16. Now we will play 4th seed Alexander Zverev, and a tough game coming up for Andy Murray. The number 1 seed in this tournament is Andrei Rublev of Russia, and also in the tournament is Daniil Medvedev. He's the number 3 seed. He won the past weekend the ABN AMRO tournament in the Netherlands. Going across to the WTA, that's a women's tour taking place at the moment. It's the Dubai Duty Free tournament that is continuing. In the round of 32 also, it's Elena Rybakina that's through to the next round. She beat Bianca Andreescu of Canada by 6-3 and 6-4. And then strong field also in this tournament. It is number 1 seed Iga Swiatek that's in the tournament. She also won the past weekend. And also number 2 seed Aryna Sabalenka, and the number 3 seed is Jessica Pegula. Jessica Pegula is of the United States and also played in the final the past weekend. And continuing international sports news with golf news on the ladies PGA, it is the Honda Classic that will be played this week from Thursday to Sunday in Thailand. And the good news for the organizers is that Lydia Ko, the world number 1 player, world's best female player, she confirmed to be playing in the tournament. She also recently won the Aramik Saudi International Golf Tournament. Also taking off is the world number 2 and 3. It will be world number 2 Nelly Korda from the United States also in the tournament, and then also world number 3 Minjee Lee. She's from Australia, also playing in the tournament. Now continuing international sports news with Formula 1 racing news, and it is the Bahrain Grand Prix that's coming up in a few weeks' time, the first one of the 2023 season. Formula 1 governing body have stepped back a little bit on that was a controversial rule related to the freedom of speech of drivers during the season. And initially it was said that all drivers need prior consent to make any statements, that is for political, religious or personal statements. So there was lots of criticism for this, especially from some of the top drivers like Lewis Hamilton. Also Max Verstappen said he was not happy with that, and also George Russell expressed that he's not happy with this ruling. Now Formula 1 have indicated that this would only apply to pre-race and post-race interviews that was at the venue, and also any interviews that is done on the track while there is a race or Formula 1 on the way. So that is a new ruling that was clarified by Formula 1. The new season starts on the 5th of March. That will be the Bahrain Grand Prix. That will testing, or the first qualifying, will be from the 3rd of March. There will be 23 races in the 2023 season. And closing international sports news with Olympics news and Olympic Games coming up 2024 in France, in Paris. And the news from the Olympic Games is that the subject of discussion at the moment is participation of Russian and Belarus athletes at the Olympic Games. At the moment, because of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, that Russian and Belarus athletes all over the world in different sports are not allowed to compete, or either compete under a neutral flag. At the moment, the International Olympic Committee's suggestion is that they're exploring the pathway for the athletes to compete as neutrals. But there was a meeting from 30 countries that came together just a few days ago, and they signed a document that asked that the Belarus and Russian athletes should not compete at all at the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Some of the countries that signed that document is the United Kingdom, also the host France, and then also Japan, the United States of America, also Italy, Australia, and Canada and Germany, just to mention some of the countries that signed the document. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow.
Straight Talk is a debate competition for high school learners and a spelling competition for primary school learners, mostly focusing on current affairs among the youth. Contact Zone at synergy.com.na to share your products and services. Straight Talk. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument.
You're still with Africa. Good morning. Let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you need a quick recap. 2 million Malagasy in path of Cyclone Freddy. Zimbabwe wants to create Africa's Dubai at Victoria Falls. Top Anglican clerics no longer recognize Welby. DRC, Zambia vow to resolve customs delays for trucks hauling copper and cobalt.
Those have been our stories. Thank you very much for watching Africa Good Morning. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And on that note, is all our love, all our light, and happy Wednesday.